At the time of recording this, it is the 6th of June, which means I have 9 days to get the demo for Primus ready in time for the Steamfest. And the slightly worrying part is that the demo has already failed approval. The goal for this week was pretty simple: submit the demo, get it approved, and then use the remaining time to polish the game and get everything in the best state possible before the actual Steamfest starts. When the demo, when Steam tested the demo, they got to the combat scene, and apparently nothing really happened. The gladiators just sort of stood there, the crowd cheered, but the gladiators decided they didn't really want to do anything, which is a bit unfortunate, because 9 days is not very long and the demo is still incomplete. So starting off with Monday, I got started with the combat scene. For reference, the approval came in by the end of this week, so this is before it all happened. The plan really was to add more combat stances, clean up combat systems, and generally make the combat scene feel less rough. At this point, the combat still needed a lot of work, and considering the demo obviously later failed approval, means that it still needs work now. And the main thing I was trying to do was to make the combat feel more like an actual dungeon crawler loop rather than a disconnected fight scene. So later in the day, I ended up also working on combat preparation. The idea is that before entering a arena circuit, the player should have a chance to prepare. Now right now there's not really any healing during combat, so I wanted there to be moments where you can buy supplies, manage gladiators, and decide how you wanted to basically, set them up before sending them into a fight. At the moment, there are two types of supplies. You've got healing supplies, which restore a percentage of gladiators' HP, and then buff supplies, which can give temporary buffs to gladiators in the next fight. I also added like a supplies merchant, where effectively you will buy these supplies before you'll go into the circuit. And from there, I also then added an interval panel into combat. The idea really is that, let's say you were in a short arena circuit, there might be a fight at the start, and then an interval in the middle, and then a fight at the end. The interval is obviously where the player can use items, heal up, and apply buffs before then continuing. So Monday was mostly about trying to give combat more structure, repair the arena, survive the fight, recover if you can, and then push further. When Tuesday rolled around, I focused on general fixes and bugs, but I also introduced something that will really be quite useful for progress of the game, that being daily logs. One of the things I've been struggling with recently is knowing what actually makes a good day of work. When you're working on a big project like a game, it can be really hard to judge your progress because you might spend the whole day fixing bugs or fixing all things all over the place, but then it can still feel like nothing's really changed. Or you might add lots of small things, but then the game still feels unfinished or where it started at the beginning of the day. So I decided to make daily logs in Trello. The idea was pretty simple. For each day, I make two checklists. One is what would make today a good day, and the other is what would make today a great day. Usually I'll write the list the day before for obviously the upcoming day. So instead of waking up immediately trying to figure out what I should be doing, I can open Trello and I can immediately see what the day is meant to look like. I think this helps for two reasons. First of all, it gives me a clearer target. I'm not just trying to vaguely work on games, I know exactly what would make the day successful. The second thing is that it also helps with procrastination, because a lot of procrastination, at least for me, comes from not really knowing where to start and a big lack of clarity. And when the task is simply, fix the demo or just all sorts of ideas bundled across my board, it's not really ideal. So Tuesday was ideally bug fixing and just planning as a way I'd be able to make a better system for myself, because with a deadline this close, I can't really afford to spend half a day just deciding what to do. Then on Wednesday, I continued doing some Trello work, but I also started adding and even making sound effects with 11 labs. This included sounds for entering locations, transferring gold, gladiators attacking, getting hit, and things like that. The idea is that I want to obviously make this gladiator game feel a lot more immersive. For example, I made sound effects for when you enter the barracks in terms of you've got, basically distant chatter and then the odd sort of smack of the hammer. Things such as entering the infirmary, you'll have coughing sound effects and different chatter, opening the map and there's a parchment unroll, all of those sort of things. And I could pretty easily do that by making the sound effect with 11 labs. Really quite good, and I've got plenty of credits to keep making them, so that worked out pretty well. And honestly speaking, I've been able to implement a fair bit of these, but one of the things that I'm yet to test is the combat. So my thoughts for the combat is that there will be almost a attacking sound effect, think of like a male grunt. You'll then have a hit sound effect of like, blood splatter or whatever. And then you'll have a taking damage sound effect where the gladiator effectively does a taking damage grunt, if you get what I mean. I've still yet to obviously test that out, but I do want to try and make the combat feel a little more heavy, and just a lot more immersive. So that's something obviously I'm going to be testing out next week. After that, I also looked into factions, and I really started wanting to condense things down for the demo. Originally, I had 9 factions, and each faction had a head of house. Think of it as like a leader, meaning there were 9 factions and 27 leaders in total. For the full game, that might make sense, and I think I will keep that. But for the demo, especially with 9 days left, it is way too much. And considering that each head of house currently had 2 traits, which were almost like passives, and then a decree which they could activate during combat, it felt like a lot. So effectively for now, what I've done is I basically made it so that there is only 1 head of house per faction. 9 factions, 9 head of houses, feels a lot better. And what I've also done is I've cut down the 2 traits in decree just to 1 trait. Because for now, I don't want the demo to feel too bloated. I want it to feel fairly straightforward for people to be able to pick up and get a feel for what the full game could be. So the priority really is just making sure the demo actually works. There's not really much point having 27 leaders if things aren't really working the way they should be. And that's pretty much that. Because you might be wondering what actually happened to Thursday and Friday, because that's obviously clearing up the whole week. And honestly, Thursday was not a good day. I sat down in front of the Trello board, I had tasks ready, I knew exactly what I was supposed to do, and then procrastination came along, hit me across the face, and that was the day. I didn't really do anything. I pretty much spent the day doing anything but work. So yeah, there was no real dramatic reason or useful lesson in the moment, I just didn't really do the work. And as for Friday, I didn't really work on the game because I went out with family. The trip ended up taking a lot longer, and by the time I got home, it was pretty late, so I decided not to do much that day either. And it's kind of strange looking back at the week because Monday to Wednesday felt like I was really building momentum, systems were being added, demos becoming clearer, I was cutting things down, moving forward, and then that momentum disappeared very quickly. I think that's one of the difficult things with working on a project like this. Progress can build slowly, and it can also feel like it falls apart almost instantly. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the week. I did make some good progress. The demo failing approval is pretty frustrating, but it also showed me exactly where the problem is, the combat scene needs to work, and that is the priority now. So the goal for next week is pretty clear. I need to get everything working, pretty much, right? And that is about it, right? I mean, by the end of next week, I want to obviously make sure I've got the tutorials in my game which implemented and working, because I don't even know what the game fully looks like yet, so I can't really make the tutorials. I want to make the trailer for the demo. I have the sound effect and the music's already done for it. I just need the gameplay footage. And obviously I need to fix the combat scene and everything and then get it reapproved. So there's a lot to do. Now, obviously, good news is I'm using AI, so it is just a matter of being patient with it. But yeah, overall, it's been a bit of a messy week, but it's still been quite good. So yeah, moving forward, it will just be fixing that combat and just making sure the core gameplay loop works in itself. I want to try and keep the demo fairly compact, where the core gameplay loop should literally be you pick a faction, you pick a leader, you recruit gladiators, you send them into a circuit, to basically go and fight. After the gladiators are finished, they gain renown, which almost levels them up. You can then upgrade them, they get stat buffs. From there, you also rank up, and eventually you do that until you reach a certain rank threshold, such as 90, 80, 70, etc., in which you can't rank up any further until you then fight a gatekeeper boss, which obviously is going to be a boss which will be within a circuit. And then from there, you move forward. Likelihood is for the demo, there will only be 1 or 2 gatekeeper bosses, so obviously you won't be able to go the whole of the way. But I am hoping that I should be able to get this done. I am feeling pretty confident with it at the moment. There's obviously quite a lot of stuff which I've got planned for the full game, things in terms of interacting with other factions. Like one of the things I think would be quite cool is if the one faction you pick, the remaining 8, then pick a head of house at random, and then they are going and they are also trying to reach Primus as well. Perhaps they challenge you, perhaps they try to sabotage you or make alliances, etc. But I didn't want to complicate that too much for the demo, so I ended up deleting all of that. But we will see moving forward. But that's pretty much the update for this week, and I'll keep you in the loop.